In this video, I will explain how the Canadian Trucker Freedom Convoy is a massive prophetic sign from God. It is a prophetic sign that is part of a big picture of science. To prove this, I am predicting that US Vice President Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash on November 27th, 2024. How this is known in advance will be explained in this video. The date that this video is posted proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email and forensic notes PDF document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. As can be seen in this email, the prediction that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash has been known since at least August 5th, 2021. I will also prove that the Trucker Freedom Convoy protest was a massive prophetic sign from the righteous Christian God of the Bible through the prediction that President Trump will die from a heart attack on December 12th, 2024. The Trucker Freedom Convoy was a long line of trucks that traversed the continent parallel with the US-Canada border wall of security, which is the 49th parallel longitudinal line, and 49 is 7 times 7. Kamala Harris is the 49th US Vice President. 49 is 7 times 7. She is known for championing abortion rights, and the day that the trucker freedom protest began on January 22nd, 2022 was exactly 7 times 7 years after 7 US Supreme Court justices voted to legalize abortions. The trucker freedom protest traversed across the nation parallel to the 7 times 7th parallel longitudinal line. Kamala Harris, the 49th Vice President, is predicted to die in a plane crash exactly 145 weeks after February 17, 2022, which, as I will explain, was the climax of the trucker freedom protest prophetic sign that traversed the 49th parallel line. 145 is the 49th semi-prime number. In the Bible, in the book of Joshua, before the walls of security of the ancient city of Jericho collapsed in God's judgment, 7 Israelite priests blew 7 trumpets for a symbolic 7 times 7. And in terms of prophetic symbolism, Trump's election campaign and presidency were symbolized by his border wall of security. In archaic English, the word Trump means a trumpet or the sounding of a trumpet. The Israelites marched around the walls of security for 7 days before the Israelites blew the trumpets, and blew them for one long last trump before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. Trump's death will be a symbolic last trump. The last trump is a phrase that the Apostle Paul used to refer to the rapture and rescue of Christ's faithful. On October 1st, 2024, Trump trumpeted that he was visiting sites that were devastated by Hurricane Helene. Hurricane Helene is compared with Hurricane Agnes in 1972 that also devastated mid-Atlantic states far inland from the coast. The main news story of Hurricane Helene was the devastation in Asheville in Buncombe County, North Carolina, where it was reported that 72 people were killed. This is why this hurricane is compared with Hurricane Agnes in 72, and why Trump will die 72 days after he visited the devastation. 72 is 66 plus 6, and the number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy is 666. The name Agnes is a Greek name that means pure or holy. The word buncombe is a 19th century American political term meaning nonsense or unacceptable behavior. The first use of the word ash in the New Testament was when Jesus said, "Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes." On the day that Hurricane Helene hit, a college football game in Asheville between Appalachian State and Liberty University was canceled without rescheduling. This is because God is removing his protection and Liberty is being canceled in America. 72 also hints at Genesis 7:11, the verse in the Bible in which the flood judgment began, and Hurricane Helene was known for the flooding it caused. In the book of Joshua in the Bible, the Israelites blew trumpets before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. The Israelites were led by Joshua, who died at the age of 110. Trump, God's trumpet, is predicted to die exactly 110 weeks after the release of the letter written by Mrs. Wall of the National Archives and Records Administration regarding 700 pages of supposedly classified documents that the FBI obtained from Trump after they breached his estate's walls of security. In turn, the day of Mrs. Wall's letter regarding 700 pages of classified documents was 188 days after the climax of the Trucker Freedom Convoy protest prophetic sign with the Emergencies Act in the Canadian Parliament, which, as I will explain, was a massive trumpet judgment of America's and Canada's walls of security collapsing in God's judgment. God uses the number 188 for connections, as the 188th word in Strong's Hebrew Concordance is the word woe! Used in context of extreme judgment from God, including in the book of Revelation regarding prophecy for the end of the age. In Bible prophecy, the end times period of the Antichrist is symbolized by 7 years. Miss Wall's letter regarding 700 pages of documents was released exactly 7 years after ISIS blew up the ancient temple of the god Baal in Palmyra, Syria. This was in the summer of 2015, shortly after Trump first announced that he was running for president after his famous descent on the golden escalator in his Trump Tower. In other words, the Temple of Baal was destroyed at the symbolic beginning of Trump. The Capitol building in Washington, D.C. is said to be America's temple. America's temple of democracy. In one of the corridors of the Capitol building is inscribed, "We have built no temple but the Capitol. We consult no common oracle but the Constitution." It was Joshua in the Bible who led the Israelites in a march around the walls of security of Jericho over 7 days before 7 trumpets were blown. And then the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. It was Joshua, the leader, the president of the Israelites, that led them in their march around the walls of security of Jericho before they blew trumpets and the walls collapsed in God's judgment. Joshua died at the age of 110. Trump will die 110 weeks after Miss Wall's letter, which was exactly 110 days after lawyers filed for information on 80 actors that are suspected at America's temple on the 6th day of the first month in 2021. 80 actors that are suspected from the 6th day of the first month were in the news 110 days before Miss Wall's letter. In other words, through these signs and connections, God is saying that these 80 suspects that defense attorneys filed information on were instigators in perpetrating a setup conducted by the begins with an F followed by a B and ends with an I deeply state in order to get Trump and true conservatives and Christians. The purpose of this prediction in this video that is from God is to prove this. The 6th day of the first month was a setup. On the 6th day of the first month, it was announced that 80 Trumpers had been arrested at America's Temple, with the oldest being 80 years old. Also on the 6th day of the first month, inside America's Temple, it was 80 House representatives that objected to the shoplifted referendum results. This is because Trump is God's King Jehu from the book of 2 Kings in the Bible, and Jehu sent 80 men into the temple of Baal to destroy the temple and the prophets of Baal, which is why the beginning of Trump's campaign and presidency coincided with the destruction of the temple of Baal in Palmyra, Syria. Exactly 80 weeks before Miss Wall's letter was released was the first day of Trump's impeachment trial, which focused on his call at 1:10 p.m. to march to America's Temple. 1:10 p.m. hints at the number 110, the age at which Joshua died. The call to march at 1:10 p.m. and the subsequent breach of the security perimeter wall around America's Temple is an allusion to the trumpets that were blown after the Israelites marched around the walls of security of Jericho, led by Joshua, who died at the age of 110, hence why Trump's call to march was at 1:10 p.m. Archaeology proves that the walls of the ancient city of Jericho collapsed due to an earthquake, which is why Trump's impeachment trial over his call to march at 1:10 p.m. was exactly 50 years after America's most consequential earthquake in history, the San Fernando Valley earthquake on February 9th, 1971. It is said that had the earthquake lasted 3 more seconds, the wall at the dam in San Fernando would have collapsed and killed thousands of people. The date that this video is posted proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email by Google and Forensic Notes PDF document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. The number 9 symbolizes God's judgment, and God frequently repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. The number 93 hints at 3 nines. The sun is 93 million miles away from Earth. 93 days after the climax of the Trucker Freedom Protest prophetic sign, with the Emergencies Act in the Canadian Parliament in Ottawa, was the day that 900,000 people in Ottawa were without power due to a massive destructive windstorm weather event. As will be explained in this video, this weather event is pointing to the coming space weather event and solar flare from the sun that will knock out the power grid in North America. It will be a catastrophic emergency in Canada and America. The windstorm event in Ottawa was 93 days after the Emergencies Act prophetic sign in Ottawa. The sun is 93 million miles away from Earth, and on 9/11, it was Flight 93 that crashed with 44 people on board which is why the Emergencies Act was tabled in the 44th Canadian Parliament, which points to the Antichrist in an emergency, the 44th president. The storm that knocked out the power in Ottawa was a rare type of storm called a derecho. U.S. media called the storm Canada's derecho storm. A derecho storm is a long and narrow wind storm. This storm began precisely at the Detroit-Windsor border crossing that the truckers had blocked during the protest, and the storm continued in a straight line all the way to Ottawa, where it did by far the most damage. In other words, the long, narrow storm pointed to the long, narrow trucker convoy across the country to Ottawa. A derecho storm is named after a type of punch in boxing. Punches in boxing are known as JABs. The truckers were protesting the JABs. On the same day as the derecho wind weather event in the month of May was a prophetic boxing match involving the GOAT, greatest of all time, of boxing, Floyd Mayweather. His boxing shorts were white, red, green, and black, the same colors as the four horses of the apocalypse in Bible prophecy. The famous song, The Boxer, is by Paul Simon, who is predicted to die on August 1st, 2025, days before the predicted solar flare space weather event from the sun that will knock out, punch out, America's power grid. The sun is 93 million miles away from Earth. Simon's death is predicted to be exactly 167 weeks after the derecho storm and Mayweather boxing fight, and 167 is the 39th prime number. 39 hints at the sun that is 93 million miles away from Earth. And the straight line derecho storm and Ottawa's power grid that was knocked out, and the Mayweather boxing fight was 93 days after the climax of the trucker prophetic sign that was about the JABs. And the JABs is hinted at with this theme of boxing. In the book of Genesis, the flood judgment was a weather event that lasted for 40 days. The ancient Israelites marched around the wall of security of Jericho before it collapsed in God's judgment, and they were led by Joshua, who died at the age of 110. 40 days is also 1 month and 10 days, which hints at the number 110, and 40 days after the Mayweather fight and the derecho windstorm that knocked out Ottawa's power grid was the day that Canadian soldier James Topp completed his Freedom March along the border wall of security between Canada and the US, across the continent from the west coast, and marched into Ottawa. This was on June 30th, 2022, exactly 888 months after President Truman's National Freedom Day Act was approved by Congress. The number 888 is the numeric equivalent in Greek gematria of the name Jesus in Greek, the language of the New Testament. The completion of Topp's Freedom March is exactly 163 weeks before the sun will knock out the North American power grid on August 13th, 2025. 163 is the 38th prime number, and 38 hints at 3/8. Therefore, the National Freedom Day Act connects with 3/8 to the Freedom March, which connects with 3/8 to the destruction of freedom and the knockout of the power grid. This will be a testament to how the source of true freedom is only in Lord Jesus Christ and his victory over the slave master of this world, Satan. on the same day as the climax of the Trucker Freedom Convoy protest and the Emergencies Act, was the official release of the trailer for the new Elvis movie, in which Tom Hanks plays Colonel Parker, who stole Elvis from Sun Records, which is why the probe around the sun is named the Parker Probe. And this is why exactly 182 weeks after the release of the new Elvis trailer movie will be August 13th, 2025, the date it is predicted that the solar flare will knock out America's power grid. The 182nd prime number is 1091, which is a number that God uses to hint at the big warning of judgment on 9/11, when the World Trade Center towers were struck, which hints at the world being struck by a catastrophic solar flare. Some social media sites have a maximum length for videos that can be posted, and so I need to cut this video into 2 parts. Click on the link to watch the remainder of this video. You can also find this link in the description box below this video. Make sure you watch the remainder of this extremely important video that is posted on a different channel than the one you are watching now. The link to the rest of this video is in the description box below this video. If the link is not in the description box below this video, visit Odysee.com, which is spelled Odyssee.com. On Odysee.com, in the search bar, type the name of my channel, Harris Crash Prediction. Then go into the channel by clicking the channel name, Harris Crash Prediction. Once you are on the channel's homepage, then click Content. Then use the channel's search box. This is different than the Odysee.com search box. Search for this video by typing the same video title as the title of the video you are currently watching. Alternatively, for more information on how to find this video, visit the website harriscrashprediction.com. Hopefully you at least found this introduction video to be interesting, and if so, please leave a like and a comment and upvote the video, and please help this video to go viral by sharing it with everyone you know and sharing it everywhere in social media.